Hello and welcome to the Venus Flytrap podcast or webinar, depending on how you're watching this. And my name is Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards, and I'm your host, the hostess with the mostess. No, that would be the host with the... Anyway, it's me. So we're going to talk about how to avoid a toxic relationship, or as I call them, a Venus Flytrap relationship, and how to get out before it destroys you, which I managed to do, and some people don't. And that's because I am perfect and you are not. Oh, sorry, I misread that. I'm not perfect and neither are you. All right, so, sometimes we read what we want to read, don't we, right? But that's not necessarily what we need to read. All right, so we're getting into this a little bit. And we're going to talk about the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. So welcome back to the Venus Flytrap podcast. Like I said, I'm Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards, and today we're talking about something that can change the direction of your entire life. People spend years choosing careers, houses, and investments, yet they often spend only a few weeks choosing the person who will have the greatest influence on their emotional, mental, physical, and it says, and even financial, I would say probably and especially your financial well-being. So the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. I think that is undisputable, so don't argue. All right, why do smart people keep choosing the same person, or at least maybe the same person in a different body? I'll give you that, right? Or anyone for that matter. Why do they find themselves in toxic or Venus flytrap relationships repeatedly? Well, because they're idiots. All right, no. And how do they stop attracting the same people? What you got to do is you got to stay home, don't go anywhere, and watch Netflix. Well, that might be an option, but that's not the option we want to take, right? So that is what we're going to talk about today. How to avoid a toxic relationship. And, very important, how to get out of one before it destroys you. We're going to go through both. And you need both, right? Now, if you're not in a toxic relationship, these are still things you need to know. So you don't ever get in one, right? And you're going to be able to see the signs of a toxic relationship before you get into one. So you don't get it. Anyway, you get the point. So let's get started. Okay. All right. So this section is called From Awareness to Pattern Recognition. In the last episode, we discussed the first step, right? Which is awareness, becoming aware you got a problem. Becoming aware that you keep meeting the same person in a different body. Aware that there are things you need to change. First thing about the awareness, though, is you need to recognize it's you that needs to change, right? That you're doing this to yourself. And there's a reason you're doing it for yourself, which is a blessing, right? So toxic relationships are not a curse. They're a blessing. And we're going to get into that in a minute. And I know some of you are thinking, what is he talking about? He's lost his mind again. Well, just so you know, I never got it back, right? I lost my mind a long, long time ago. And if you ask anybody who knows me, they will confirm that. Yeah, long time ago, which, I appreciate. That's a nice compliment, and it's nice of them to say, and I appreciate it. All right, so as difficult as this may be to believe, toxic or Venus flytrap relationships are one of the greatest gifts you'll ever receive, right? And people go, huh? You're kidding me right now. Nope, I'm not kidding. But before you turn this off and you go out, hear me out. Whether you're in a Venus flytrap relationship or you've ever been in one, there is a richness in the learning opportunities rarely, if ever, found anywhere else in your life. I know. You see, it's never about the other person. It's about you. What? The other person is simply a mirror, reflecting who you are being right back at you. Yeah, that's what they say, right? Right back at you. Okay. Now you're really getting crazy. I would never abuse someone else. No. But you allowed them to abuse you, didn't you? You gave them permission. Now, the first time, what do they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 20 times and put me in an asylum. This is where some of you probably should be. I was, right? Just so you know. So I would never lie to them or hurt them emotionally. No, but you allowed them to do it to you. The truth is, you didn't see all the red flags, or more likely, you chose to ignore them. You made excuses for them. Why? Well, because you're either too afraid to lose them, so you lost yourself instead. You gave yourself away. Slowly at first, so you didn't really notice it, but you compromised your values. Stop doing the things that gave you confidence and certainty. Withdrawing with friends, family, your support group. Whatever you were drawn to about this other person, their confidence, their charisma, their strength, these are all qualities and potentials that are within you, but over time you have forgotten or given away. So this relationship is going to remind you, son of a, yes, perhaps you've been afraid to be that person that you need to be, that you want to be. You're a wannabe, right? Perhaps you couldn't set healthy boundaries. What the heck are those? We're going to talk about it, right? And you couldn't set healthy boundaries because you're afraid that if you did, they might leave you. And you're terrified of being abandoned. How do I know? Because I listen to your phone calls. No, I don't. But everybody is terrified of being abandoned. You're not the only one, so calm down. Perhaps you have trust issues with yourself. Perhaps you don't trust your intuition. Perhaps you don't trust your mind, right? You don't trust yourself. That's not a good place to be in, right? So we have what I call the 3 universal fears. And don't worry, we all have them. All of us? Yes, all of us. We're all dealing with them at some level and to some degree. These are the 3 universal fears that are built into the human consciousness and that we all experience at some level. Lack of self-worth. Fear of abandonment. I'll just go back to that a second. Fear, lack of self-worth. You say, Stephen, I know some people who are just so confident, they're never in any doubt, right? But they never in any doubt, but they're often wrong, right? Yeah. So they lack self-worth, and sometimes they overcompensate for that by appearing very confident, right? An example of that extreme is a bully. A bully is terrified. They're a coward, but they want to present an image or create a perception that they're not scared of anything. So hopefully no one is going to challenge them, right? We all know someone like that, right? The fear of abandonment is the second one. I don't want to be left alone. A lot of people don't like being alone, which is why it's used as a torture, right? In prison, it's a punishment. In combat, it's a torture, right? So we are not solitary beings. We're social beings, and we like to socialize, right? So if you completely cut people off, you abandon them, it's going to be scary. And then the third is the inability to trust. Those are the 3 universal fears, right? And the reality is the inability to trust is not someone else, it's ourselves. It shows up like we can't trust anybody, right? And today in the world, if you think about it, it's hard to trust anybody in the external world, isn't it? And it was harder to trust people in the past. You just didn't realize it until they betrayed your trust, right? So if you don't trust other people, it's scary. But the greatest fear is not being able to trust yourself, not being able to trust your decisions, not trust your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, your words, or your actions, right? So, and there's some strong references to support that, right? Sometimes I feel this or I feel that, which maybe are not positive feelings or emotions. But where are they coming from? They're coming from past patterns. Look at that. Past patterns. I'm going to use that. Past patterns that were developed usually or installed or programmed into you or brainwashed into you, usually from your childhood, and then constantly reinforced through the course of your life. So we've got to relearn remember who we really are, that we are powerful, strong, confident beings. People say, Stephen, you're not talking about me. Yes, I am. All right, I'm going to prove it to you because we're going to take you through that process. We're going to release all those negative feelings and thoughts and patterns that have caused you to believe that you are anything less than perfect. Now, that's a pretty high standard. I get it, right? But what I mean is who you really are is perfect. You're an individual representation, a unique aspect of the whole. You're not meant to be the same. And we have this ingrained belief that if we're not the same as everybody else, we're not perfect, we're imperfect. And we're trying to hold ourselves to an impossible standard. Because show me a perfect person. I know, besides me, okay? Let's not use me as the reference. Anyway, so here's the point. Who is a perfect person? Show me one. There isn't. Why? Because we're all different. We're all unique, right? We're all a little different. And we've got to embrace that. We've got to be proud of that. We've got to accept ourselves before anybody else is gonna, right? So your self-worth is something that we might have to work on a little bit or a lot, right? And then the fear of abandonment. You can't be alone because the creative force that created everything in the universe is inside of you, so you can't be abandoned. Hello. Now, these are simple things to say, difficult things to live. I get it. I'm just sharing what they are right now, so calm down, all right? I'm not saying you got to be these things right away. Any more than you were programmed not to believe those things overnight. It took time to program you. You weren't born going, yeah, I suck, man. I'm just not good enough. No, you weren't born believing that. It's been programmed into you. You've been brainwashed to believe that. Why? So other people can keep you down. They can control you and use your energy for their benefit. The fear of abandonment. You didn't come in the world going, I'm all on my own. You've been programmed to believe that can happen. And number 3, the inability to trust. To begin with, you trusted everybody. You had no reason not to. And you trusted yourself. The problem is, sometimes you trusted yourself to walk before you're ready and you fell over. God damn it. All right, so you got to heal these patterns. You don't have to. You don't have to do anything. You can say, well, are you happy? Are you happy doing the things you're doing? Are you happy with the people you're meeting? Are you happy with all your relationships? Or is it possible that you might want to have better relationships? That you might want to create different results in your life? Yeah, let's go with that one. All right, so we've got to move past these patterns that are holding us back. So how would you like to heal them? Heal these patterns, move past them, and meet the person you have dreamed of. Yeah, well, that's not going to happen, but it's okay to dream. All right, I'm kidding. All right, so before we can meet that person and be with them, we need to become that person. Yeah, I know, you're a man, you're not going to be a woman, you're a woman, you're not going to be a man, unless you choose to be. But my point is, you're going to need to become the person that they want to be with. And the only way, well, that was loud. The only way that's ever going to happen is if you become who you really are. You need to be your authentic self. You need to be who you really are. Ooh, that sounds deep. Yeah, well, it's time to stop paddling around in the shallow end of the pool. You're not a child anymore. It's time to grow up, to swim at the deep end with the big boys and girls. Now, and that means to face yourself, to face who you're being now, and recognize, remember, become a member again of who you really are. So we've got to pick up the pieces. We've got to absorb them, make them part of who we really are, and then we can live a life of our dreams. We can meet the person of our dreams. Well, depending on what you're dreaming. All right, so the opportunity is to see who you are being in the mirror that the partner that you believe is doing this to you is mirroring back to you, that they're providing for you to see who you are being at the moment. So meaning is a choice. Nothing has any meaning until we give it one, right? That's important to know. So let me be clear. That does not make what this other person did okay. It doesn't. But you can't change what happened. But you can change the meaning you give it. Interesting. Do you want to have a wound that you carry with you for the rest of your life, along with the other ones? Or do you want to be wiser and be closer to being who you really are? That's your choice. Look, if you say, they did this to me or they did that to me, now you have a wound. You can put that in a little box in your mind and in your heart, in your body, along with the rest of them. Or if you say, they did it for me, and you commit to that belief, not pretend, not just say the words, but truly believe it, you will find the gold lining, not silver, gold. You'll find the reason, the gift that reveals to you the parts of yourself that need healing, the patterns that have been holding you back. So you've been asking, praying, sometimes begging to find the right person, to have the confidence and certainty to be the person you want to be, who you really are. Well, ask and what? Well, look. No, not at them, at you, right? They are providing you with all the answers, all the parts of your nature that you've been ignoring or pushing down out of lack of self-worth, fear of being abandoned, and feeling that you cannot trust. You see, if you believe they did it for you, you can never be a victim again. You can heal all your wounds. And then you are now on the journey home. You're wiser. So the question is, wound or wiser? Which do you choose? It's up to you. If you choose well, your life expands. Choose poorly, and your world gets smaller. If you choose poorly, your world gets smaller until one day you wake up wondering where you went. Today isn't about blaming men. It isn't about blaming women. It's about blaming both. I'm kidding. It's about recognizing unhealthy patterns before they become prisons. The real trap is forgetting yourself, because the real trap isn't simply another person or even another person, right? The real trap is forgetting yourself. And I mean that in a number of ways, like forgetting yourself in the equation, putting yourself last, putting the other person first all the time, putting them on a pedestal, putting you on a stool. You know, like I said at the beginning, people say, well, I would never abuse anybody. No, but if you allow other people to, where's that putting you? Last. Like you're not important. Well, you are important. I hope. Yes, you're important, right? We're all important. Now, important doesn't mean better. Like you're special. Special doesn't mean better. It means you're unique. And we're all unique aspects of the whole. Your creative gifts inside of you need to be expressed to the fulcrum, because if they're not, you're depriving yourself and others of enjoying them, of experiencing them. And if you hold them back because you're afraid of what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say, is everyone going to love me? No, absolutely not. And that I'm not joking about. Not everybody's going to love what you do, what you have to offer. Not everybody's going to enjoy or appreciate your creative gifts, but some will. And everybody isn't supposed to enjoy your creative gifts, everything you say, everything you do. Why not? Because you couldn't handle it. It would be too overwhelming. If everybody loves what you do, then now you feel like you've got the responsibility to keep doing it. And that's a lot of stress. And this is what a lot of people we call movie stars or famous people or celebrities, this is what they are struggling with. What they struggle with is what other people think about them because they want everybody to love them. And everybody doesn't. And they focus on those that they don't and trying to convince them to love them while they don't appreciate the people who do. And what's going to happen there? No one's going to love them. And that's what they're afraid of. That one day people won't want to be them anymore. People won't care whether they're in a movie or whether they see them anymore. And that's a terrible fear to have. Instead of, well, I'm not doing it for fame and fortune. I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it and I enjoy it. And I enjoy people taking pleasure from it. But if I don't have it, I'll still be who I really am. I'm not attached to that outcome. I see it for what it is, an illusion, a temporary state. It's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. You know, the Buddhists are great at teaching this, aren't they, right? They're great at teaching a lot of things, but this is one that I love one of the ways they do this is, you know, when they do an event, usually during the time that they're in the city, and they're usually in there for a week or so, they create sand mandalas, right? Beautiful pictures. And it takes, you know, quite a few monks to blow the different colors of sand into this absolutely stunning piece of art. And then at the end, when it's done, people come and admire it. And then what do? They scrape all the sand up, put it in a pad in the middle. And people are going, oh my God, I could have taken that home. That's incredible. What are they teaching? That nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. And then they take all that sand and they throw it in the river, just in case the sand decides to reform into that beautiful mandala. Not happening. Everything is temporary. Everything is an illusion outside of ourselves. And what we don't want to become is attached to it. One of the biggest secrets you can ever learn. Which in the book I talk about being attached to certain things that Tomas helped me to see. Being attached to my clothes, right? An attachment means when you think, you believe that something in the external world is you. That if you don't have it, you will somehow be diminished. And that's not true. So, when that mandala is destroyed, people go, because they feel attached to it. Now on a small scale, but it's still the same, right? And so we have to let go. We have to let things come and go in our lives, including relationships. That we don't hold onto them out of fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear that we won't be enough if they're not in our lives. And fearing the trust that it takes to let them go. You know, if you love someone enough, you got to let them go. And if they're meant to be with you, they'll come back. That happens every day, right? You let them out the front door. You got to trust that they're going to come back. And if they don't, you got to be okay. I go looking for them in the local pub or bar or the local pizzeria or they go for... Anyway, the point is non-attachment, right? So we forget ourselves. Look, part one, the trap never looks like the trap. No one knowingly enters a toxic relationship. They enter what appears to be love. Mm-hmm. Toxic relationships usually begin with extraordinary attention, deep conversations, constant messages, intense chemistry, and promises of forever. Feels amazing. I know, I've been through it. It's incredible. You don't want it to ever end, right? And so you will hold on for dear life, literally, dear life, to keep it. The problem is that intensity is often confused with intimacy, but it isn't. Okay, intensity is not intimacy. So what is intimacy? Intimacy is being able to share your deepest, darkest secrets with the person you love, because that takes trust. And the only way to have the only way to have intimacy is through trust. And you might say, Stephen, I can't tell them that because, you know, they might use it against me, or they might find it too much and leave me, or they might start extorting me. Yeah, It's true. All of those things are true. So let me ask you this. If that person did that, they abused your trust. They told other people about what you told them. They used it against you, and then in an argument, well, you said did and you did. Or they say, if you don't give me $100 grand, I'm going to tell people what you said. Is that the kind of person you want to be with for your entire life? And you go, Stephen, I don't think there's anybody I'd want to be with for my entire life. Okay, good point. But the point is that someone you want to be with for any part of your life? Hopefully not. Now, when did you find out? Did you find out in the beginning or the end? You found out at the beginning, didn't you? Instead of giving up 10, 20, or 30 years of your life to find that out, you did it at the beginning. You tell me, which is better? Yes, you're taking a risk, but there's no life without risk. Now, I'm not saying, tell the person your deepest, darkest secrets on the first date, right? That's not what I'm saying. But when you've made the decision that you want to be intimate with somebody, that perhaps you do want to make a life with them, then you want to make sure you clear the table. You want to make sure they know who you really are, what you've been through, so they can never use it against you. Now, I did it in a book, right? I'm not suggesting you do it in a book. I talk about in the book about some of the most terrible things that happened to me, things I was ashamed of, right? Being put in an insane asylum at 16 years old, right? That was something I didn't tell anybody for most of my entire life. I was ashamed of it, but it was down inside me to the point where I wasn't living life to the full because I was scared that people were going to find out about those things. So how do you, if you're worried that those things are going to show up, then you can't love because you're thinking, yeah, well, they say they love me now, but they don't know who I really am. They don't know about my past. And if they did, would they leave me? So you're going to hold back. You're not going to love fully. Now, because you've given that trust, and if that person honors that trust, now you have intimacy. Because you've told them things that nobody else knows about you. And a person that appreciates that would never betray your trust, is someone you can now have intimacy with. See, intimacy is not found in the bedroom. Intimacy is found long before you get to the bedroom. But you see, if you have that intimacy before you get in the bedroom, now when you get in the bedroom, now you can have crazy, mad, amazing sex, right? Because they're willing to be vulnerable, to give themselves to you fully, to not be worried that you're going to, take advantage of it. You're not going to tell other people about it. It's private, right? You've got their trust. Therefore, now you can have intimacy. I know. It's like these things were always there. You just weren't paying attention. All right. So healthy love grows through consistency. Toxic attachment grows through urgency. Big difference, right? So time reveals character. If someone is trying to rush commitment before trust has had time to develop, you got to ask yourself why. Time reveals character. So discuss these things slowly. Choose well, or watch your world become smaller. If you choose well, your life expands. Things get better, and you are able to share more things with the person you're with, as long as you have your support network, which we'll get to in a minute. If you choose poorly, your world slowly becomes smaller until one day you wake up wondering where you went. Abusive behavior is not gender specific. Women can be just as manipulative as men. I think that should say men can just, I'm just kidding, all right? Here's the point. The real trap is forgetting yourself. It's about recognizing unhealthy patterns before they become prisons. Because the real trap isn't simply another person. It's not even another person. Right? The real trap is forgetting yourself. What do I mean by that? What do you mean forgetting yourself, Stephen? I remember who I am every day. I'm Sally, or I'm Brian, or I'm Kevin, or I'm Jilly, whatever it is, right? What I mean is forgetting your true nature, forgetting who you really are, how you want to show up in the world. That's forgetting yourself. And when you are so enthralled by someone who is confident, strong, and powerful in the world, what you're drawn to is parts of yourself that you are not living. You're not expressing. And all those qualities lie within you. That person is showing you a part of yourself that you are denying or ignoring. So own it. Develop those characteristics. By how? By letting go of the fear of living them. So the reason someone isn't living those things is because they're afraid to, because they don't feel confident enough. They don't feel sure of themselves. And what does that create? Lack of self-worth. Now, again, just reminding you, we're all going through this. All of us. You mean you too, Stephen? Yes, a little bit. Yes, we're all going through it, right? Of course we have doubts and fears. Of course we have parts of ourselves that we haven't owned. We're all walking through the forest. Right? We're all working on these things. Well, we're not. That's our choice. All right. So building self-esteem is a journey, and it seems never ending. It probably is, but that's okay. It's not the destination. It's the journey as you uncover, discover, reveal, remember who you really are. It's an amazing feeling. As you're making progress, it feels good. It's when you're falling backwards that it doesn't feel good, and then you feel defeated, and then you let go, and you spiral down. You're either spiraling up or you're spiraling down. One way or another, you're spiraling. Right? Yeah, some people say that's probably why I keep getting headaches and feel dizzy. But anyway, part 2, 7 red flags. So these patterns show up again and again. So discuss each one slowly. Notice which ones you have excused before. All right. So number 1, love bombing. Sounds great. And it is great. You get bombed with love everywhere you turn. But it's not real. Right? It's loving everything you do, constantly texting you, emailing you, call you, telling you they love you, telling you they can't live without you, that you're the best thing that ever happened to them. They don't know what they would do without you. It feels great, right? And you're thinking, wow, I can't believe that I finally found the person that I love and want to be with. They're amazing. They put me first. They give me gifts. They give me massages. They hold me the way I want to be held. They know me. They finish my sentences. I finish theirs. They're my soulmate. And they tell me I'm their soulmate. What's wrong with that, Stephen? I'm going to tell you. Hold on a second, right? So impatient, all right? So the next thing then is they isolate you, right? How do they isolate you? Well, they put you in a room, lock the door, and don't know. So what they do is, little by slow, they get you to let go of your friends, your family, all your support network until you're isolated. How do they do that? Well, it's little by slow again. Well, I don't think your mom likes me. She's always mean to me. She doesn't say nice things to me. Your friends don't like me. Oh, don't do that now. I need you here with me right now. And little by slow, you start to listen. Well, I'm not going to invite her over to my mom's house because she doesn't think my mom likes it. I'm not going to invite her out with my friends because she thinks my friends don't like her. I'm not going to invite her to the gym because she just doesn't like to go to the gym, so I'm not going to go to the gym. Well, she likes to have a few drinks. I don't drink, but you know what? What's a few drinks? There's no harm. I'm just giving you some examples here. I'm not saying these are with you, but you get my point, right? Then gaslighting, right? Saying things, and then you saying, but you said, and they're going to go, no, I never said that. And then you start to go crazy. I mean, literally, it can make you go crazy because then you start to question yourself. Did she say that? Did he say that? Well, maybe I imagined it. You're going crazy. Blame shifting, an excellent one. All right. So here's what, and if you read the book, you see this all the time, right? In The Venus Flytrap. If you haven't read the book, go read it immediately. Anyway, the point is in the book, there are times when things would happen, when Tamaz would do things, we'd have an argument, we'd break up, and then she'd call me or text me, whatever, right? And then she'd say, Stephen, I'm so sorry. I realize now that, doing that caused this to happen and that to happen. I'm really sorry. And you go, wow, that's all I wanted to hear. And then less than 2 minutes. But the thing is, you can't do this anymore. You can't do that anymore. If you hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have done. And the next minute, the blame is all you. The blame is all on you. And I would talk about this in the book. You would see it happening. It's probably never happened to you, right? But it's happened to people, right? So how many of you have had these experiences? Have you had these experiences? Can you relate? No? Well, you probably lie to yourself about other things too, right? Anyway, emotional unpredictability. It becomes addictive. Huh? You've heard of trauma bonding, right? It's when initially, like I said, love bombing goes on. It's amazing. And you want that feeling. When it's taken away, you are thinking, I just got to work harder to get it back because I know they can be that way. And so maybe right now they're just having a bad day or they forgot. Emotional unpredictability. Control disguised as care. Baby, don't wear that dress. It makes you look terrible. And I'm only telling you that because I really love you and care about you and I want you to look your best. Okay, well, I want to look my best and I want to look my best for them, right? So I'll go change. No big deal. Little by slow, you give yourself away. Because who are you trying to please? Who do you please first? Well, there's Mary, yourself, right? You gotta make yourself happy. If there's not happy, just be strong enough to say, well, that's your opinion and I respect that. However, I need to be able to wear clothes that make me feel good. This dress makes me feel good. And for the girls, same thing. All right. Some of you will get that on the way home. It's perfectly okay. All right. And you start losing your identity. You start losing your sense of self. Now, listen carefully, because I'm going to talk in a very low voice. No, I'm not, but just listen. Hi, listen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're here to make a public service announcement. If you're enjoying this conversation, which I know you are, right? Because if you say no, you probably lie about other things too, right? So if you're enjoying this, which I really do hope that you are, please take a moment to follow or hit the subscribe button and the like button so you never miss an episode. Let's get back to the conversation. Your identity is the strongest force in the human psyche. We will go to extraordinary lengths to align and live in accordance with our identity. If you let it go and you don't have one, you're all over the place. You have no center. You have no sense of self, and you're just trying to be what the other person wants you to be in order for them to love you. That is not a good place to be. You are now a candle in the wind. Part 3, why good people stay. Because people associate being good with being nice, and being nice with doing what everybody else wants. All three are separate. Many people think leaving should be easy. It isn't easy. People stay because they are bonded to hope. Like I said in the beginning, they're getting love bombed, or you're getting love bombed, and it's amazing. And you want that feeling again. And when they go off that track and start being mean, divisive, manipulative, gaslighting, you're just hoping that they're going to get back to the person that love bombed you. And that is called trauma bonding. Excuse me. You remember the beginning instead of accepting the present. The past is history. The future is a mystery. This moment is a gift. That's why they call it the present. Trauma bonds create emotional addiction. So when Tomas and I would break up, it was stressful because we didn't want to break up, right? Because we were trauma bonding, or I was, right? And when we would make up again, oh man, it felt so good. Not just the sex, mostly the sex, but it just felt really good, right? To be back together again. And you become addicted to that emotion, that feeling. You don't realize it consciously, but again, that is a trauma bond. All right, how to protect yourself? Well, best thing is to go down to Walmart and get a Magnum 45 or a what's it called? A Stigma, is it called? I don't know. Whatever the gun is, right? I don't have a gun because I'd probably use it. No, I don't have a gun. I grew up in England. We don't even have guns in England. I would never know how to use one. I do have a funny story about that, but I'm not going to tell you right now. I almost shot myself. And that made me realize that probably having a gun was not helpful to me, and it definitely wasn't helpful to the public at large. All right, so you got to know your values before you date. Now, they don't have to know your values before you date, but you got to know them, right? What are things that are important to you? Honesty, integrity, kindness. You get my point, right? So you're going to, don't say it's an American Express card. That's a bad sign, all right? So what are your values? Know what they are? So those become your true north, right? And you need a true north. South, we can manage without, but north, All right, so know your values before you date. Move slowly. Don't propose marriage at the end of 30 days. You need at least 45. You get my point. Move slowly. Watch actions more than words. How do you watch words? You know my point, right? So watch their actions more than believing their words. Right? Need for editing there. All right, keep your friendships because they will cause you to think that you need to let them go. Now listen, these things happen gradually. No one's going to come into your relationship. Listen, I don't want you to have any friends, right? They know that you're going to want friends, but they also know how to be manipulative. So this is my point here. This is important. When empaths, kind people, caring people start not appreciating themselves, their value, their self-worth, they become easy targets for sociopaths, narcissistic people. They're looking for you. Seriously, they're looking for you. And they know how to manipulate. Look, this sounds like bad news, and in some ways it is, because as a kind, caring, loving person, you don't want to constantly feel like you got to be on your guard. But here's the reality. Grow up. You do. It's just life. And you need to build your self-worth. Otherwise, you're going to be prone to this stuff forever. And you might think, well, I'm just going to not date for a while and then I'll heal. And then, 6 months or a year down the road, I can start dating again when I feel like I've recovered. Oh, yeah? Okay. So you do that. You wait 6 months. You've been disciplined. You've not been online. You've not been on Tinder or whatever those websites are. What's the other one? I can't think. I know a lot of them, right? But I can't think. Hinge. What was the other one where the girl initiates the process? Anyway, you know them. eHarmony, whatever they are. I don't know what the big ones are right now. Why? Because I don't get on them. Why? because I'm a loser and I'm going to make the same mistakes again. No. Well, I might be a loser, but I'm not going to make the same mistakes again, right? And so I've taken the time to study this stuff, be clear about this stuff, allow myself to be tested, and to make sure that I'm not going to go into or repeat the same patterns. So there. Anyway, these people are out there and they're looking for you. They're parasitical, right? They're looking for a host. And you will become a host if you don't follow through on the things that I'm sharing with you right now. If you don't heal the wounds, if you don't change the patterns, there is nothing, absolutely nothing you can do until you do these things. But these things are things you can notice that you might be giving away so you don't fall into the trap, into the Venus flytrap. Keep your friendships, keep your support system. They might try and stop you going out with your friends. Oh, don't go out tonight. Stay here with me. Or start picking on your friends. They might even set your friends up. Like how? Well, they could start saying, well, I think your buddy Dave, I think he likes me. He keeps looking at me a certain way. The other day he put his hand on my ass. I really don't feel comfortable being around him. Now, they're setting up Dave, right? They could even create a scene. Or they can make things up. And this happens. It really does happen in real life. So you're going to be in doubt, right? Because Dave might fancy her. Or Dave might have done those things. You don't know. It puts doubt in your mind and you start to not trust Dave. That shows up in your relationship. And it goes the other way too. Where men can say to a woman, your friend is hitting on me. Now, I'm not saying anything to her because I'd be afraid that if I did, or if I said anything to her, she'd pretend that I had done something to her. And I don't want that to happen. And then it actually happens, right? Because he does do something to your girlfriend, right? And she does get mad and she does tell you. And now you're thinking, he was right. She's trying to ruin our relationship. Look, I hate to tell you this, guys. It happens all the time, right? So you've got to be solid in your relationship. You can't just trust them out of the gate. They've got to earn that trust, right? But they got to earn it. And they need to be showing you they can be trusted. So your trust in them is unshakable. That's why trust is so important. If you're starting to doubt them, if things are starting to happen around you that you don't know if you can trust them anymore, it's on purpose. Because there are many things that you can do to make sure your partner has no doubt, has no fear. They know they can trust you. There are things you can do. For me, when I go speaking, and I hate to generalize, but that's a good thing to say before you generalize. So anyway, when somebody, a male, particularly a man, which would be me, is on stage, there is a certain image you're portraying that a lot of women are attracted to. They're attracted to the confidence. They're attracted to the things you're saying. They're attracted to the fact you're on a stage, right? That you have a whatever, even if it's a very limited amount of fame, that is appealing to many women. Now, when I finish speaking, people will come up and talk to me, most of whom had absolutely no ulterior motive other than to share their experience or some of their experiences in their life with me. Fantastic. Some women would make it obvious that they were interested in me beyond my teachings and what I know and all that kind of thing. And I'd be dating, right? Or I was in a marriage. And so I would leave that person in no doubt that I was spoken for and I was not interested in any kind of relationship outside of being professional. Now, if I didn't do that, and then the next thing they're inviting me to go for a drink, whose fault is it if I go? It's mine. Now, I could say, well, they just invited me for a drink. I thought it was going to be harmless. No, you are opening the door. And a lot of women would say, well, he let me know he was interested. How? He went for a drink with me. You see, these things are signs, and people read them in different ways. So if you're in a relationship, you have to respect that relationship, whether that person is with you or not. Don't do anything that you wouldn't do in front of them. Don't say anything that you wouldn't say in front of them. I know that sounds strict. Well, it is, because you've got to treasure that relationship, right? If you want to be in a good relationship, don't be a backstabber. And backstabbing is doing things that you wouldn't do in front of them. You know, if they were with you and that the other person says, listen, you know, it's kind of noisy in here. Why don't we just go to your room and chat? Just chat. I'm not going to do anything else. And you go, come on. You're like, where are we going? We're not going to your room, and we're not taking that other woman with you. All right? Too bad. So never give away your financial independence. You know, way back when, before you were born, probably, when you got married, you were young. I mean, some people used to get married when they were 16 or 17. You haven't made any money yet. And so the resources were all pulled together. Made sense. But now, some of you are getting married, you know, in your 50s or 60s, even your 30s or 40s, and you've already got money, your own money. Well, don't stick it in the same bank account and say, well, what's yours is mine. Bullshit. No. Don't give away that financial independence. Today, it's perfectly acceptable to keep your resources individualized. Now, you might decide to commingle them later for different things that happen during your marriage or your relationship. But that's different than just opening it all up and saying, you know, this is the situation. Now, if you ever get divorced, which I have not. All right, I'm kidding. I've been divorced 4 times. So you're going, wait a second, how are you writing a book and teaching about relationships? Well, who's better to teach about relationships? Someone who's never been in one or someone that's been in a few, right? And there's no right answer to that because it depends. But anyway, my point is, because I've been in so many toxic relationships, I've made it a focus of my studies. Just as I did with personal development, just as I did with spiritual development. And the biggest causation of my passion and interest in this is because I got my ass kicked in that relationship with Tamaz. No animosity about it, only gratitude. Because it helped me focus on this path, helped me discover all these things about myself. It was the greatest growth experiences, that I've had in my entire life. Even though before I met Tamaz, I'd worked with Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Robert Kiyosaki, and other luminaries for years. But this was the greatest learning experience of my life, which is why I say it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And that relationship taught me things about myself that if I hadn't learned, I wouldn't be who I am today. Not by a long shot. So I tell people, look, for all these lessons and teachings and wisdoms that I learned from all these incredible luminaries and teachers that changed my life, they pale in comparison to what I learned from Tamaz. So I'm eternally grateful to her. You might argue that the way I felt about her was an illusion, that I didn't love her and that it was all based on certain things. Sex. A lot, yeah. Right. By seeing what I wanted to see, yeah. But I also know I loved her, and I still love her, right? I'm not going to be around her, and I'm never going to let that happen to me again, but I can love her from afar, to truly appreciate who she really is and love her in spite of all the things that other people say she did to me. I know that a deep soul level, before she came here into this existence, into this world, into this reality, into this illusion, she made a choice to be a master teacher for me, and she was. And like I said, for that, I'm eternally grateful. Just as the person in your toxic relationship did the same thing. Now, it doesn't mean you got to be with them. It doesn't mean you got to accept what they did. No, it doesn't mean that. It means just bless them for being your teacher, for making that sacrifice to lower thy vibration to a low enough level to be the person you needed them to be in your life at that time. Yeah, told you it gets deep. You're in the deep end. You're with the big boys and girls now. Take your armbands off. You got to swim. So never give away your financial independence. Maintain your hobbies, your purpose and identity. And we will talk a lot about purpose and identity. Not so much about hobbies later, right? Healthy people respect boundaries. So if you're with a healthy person, they're going to respect your boundaries. Unhealthy people resent them. They resent boundaries. They want to be able to do what they want, whenever they want, to you, to control you, to isolate you, and eventually to devour you. And then, guess what? Then they'll throw you away. And then they'll go looking for a new host because they are parasitical. Okay, 5 questions you should never answer. Number 1, what is your body count? I'm kidding. That's not the question. But you probably shouldn't answer that either, right? So let's go through it. Number 1, when they do something without previously asking for your permission, something they know they should have asked your permission for, and they do it, and after they've done it, they say, you don't mind, do you? The tendency is to want to say, because it's happened now, right? You go, no, don't say that. Do not answer that in that way. Now, you go, what do I say? Well, say you do. But you can say it subtly. You don't go, yeah, I do. You suck, or it's over, right? What you could say is, well, I would prefer if you ever want to do something again without getting my permission, I understand. However, I'd like you to ask me first. Okay? Very controlled, very honest, and it's not mean, right? Number 2, can I be honest with you? Right? Why are they asking, can they be honest with you? Is it because they've never been honest before? Or is it because they want permission to unload on you? That it's about you, to criticize you? Can I be honest with you? Yeah, those earrings look terrible. Can I be honest with you? Yeah, I don't think you should go see your friend tonight. I don't think she likes you. But you gave them permission to say that. So, can I be honest with you? Well, it depends. What about? What do you want to be honest with me about? What would you do if you were me? Well, that's a setup, right? Because if you say, well, what I would do if I was you, I would do this, this, and this. Never say that. Why? Because if you're right, they're never going to give you the credit. They're going to take all the credit themselves. However, if it's wrong, who made the mistake? Whose fault is it? It's yours. You can't win, right? So what if you said, well, I'm not you, and I don't know what I would do if I was you, so I'm not really the right person to ask. I mean, you don't have to say that. I'm just giving you ideas, right, off the top of my head. All right. So you say, I heard you did this, this, and this, right? Now they're going to want to find out who told you so they can cut that person off at the pass, that they're never going to tell you anything that puts them in a bad light again. So if they say, who told you that? And you tell them that your best friend Mary did it, they are going to bring it up with Mary. 100% guaranteed. Now, what do they just tell Mary? You can't be trusted because you said you wouldn't tell anybody, but you did. Now Mary's never going to tell you anything again. And you have irreparably damaged that relationship. And they've already started to push Mary out of your life. And they will continue to do so by throwing shadow on them whenever there's an opportunity. And then the last one is, you trust me, right? Well, you're not going to say no, right? But you can say, well, to a degree, but I don't fully trust anybody, right? I don't think that's a good idea. What are you talking about? These are questions, when you answer them, they can only be detrimental. So if you respond no, that you don't mind when they've done something that they should have asked permission for, then they can do whatever they want and ask for your permission later. It's too late. Question number 2. If you respond yes, they can now say whatever they want about you and claim you gave them permission. Can I be honest with you? All right. What would you do if you were me? You tell them what you would do. If it goes right, they'll take all the credit. If it goes wrong, it becomes your fault. I did exactly what you told me to do. Question 4, who told you that? Well, you tell them who told you. They just tell you that. They just tell that person you gave them up. You lose their trust. They never tell you anything again. You lose a friend and close an avenue of truth. And question 5, you trust me, right? If you answer yes, you've told them they can do whatever they want because you trust them. Okay, so let's talk about perception, discretion, and strategic communication. I know. Look, if you've identified that this is a toxic relationship, which you should have by now, this shouldn't even come into play. You're going way too far too quickly, and you're not asking the right questions. But maintain influence and avoid manipulation. So protect your position and answer without surrendering control. So control information. Reveal intentionally. Do not make yourself unnecessarily predictable. Set boundaries. That's a hard thing to do. I know setting boundaries, right, is not easy to do. But anyway, you got to do it anyway, so too bad. All right, so don't be a pushover. You know, sometimes we mistake being kind for being strong in a relationship. So just saying yes and letting people get away with whatever they want without setting a boundary is weakness. And you will be a pushover and they will take advantage. Because someone who really loves you doesn't, as I said earlier, they don't resent boundaries, they respect them. All right? So you can ask questions like, well, why do you ask? Why do you ask that? Next time I would prefer that you ask for my permission first. Honest about what? Well, I'm not you, so I prefer not to answer that. It doesn't matter who told me. Is it true? I trust you to a certain extent, but I do not trust anyone completely. And you can say to them, listen, you don't mind me asking questions, do you? Turn it back on them, right? These are presented as questions that can shift responsibility, extract information, test loyalty, reduce your strategic advantage. Those are things you don't want to give away. And again, I'm not saying that you want to be constantly on the defensive, but you do want to constantly be checking your communication and keeping your boundaries. So the lesson is awareness, not silence, okay? The lesson is not never answer personal questions. Become conscious of why someone is asking, why you are answering, and whether the answer serves your best interest. Yes, honesty is powerful, but oversharing is not the same thing as honesty. Now, we compressed a tremendous amount of information into this session. This can be, all of this can be expanded upon significantly. But I wanted to give you the grounding, right? So look, leaving. Now that's, people say, when do you start with leaving? Because I'm in this relationship, I get all that stuff, I've been through all that stuff. How the hell do I get out of this? Well, the answer is just walk out the door. I know it's not that easy, right? I know it's not that easy in most cases, right? There's so much commingling of your possessions, of relationships, of your lives. It's not easy to extrapolate yourself from all that. Plus, you've got history, you've got emotions, you genuinely care about them, you think they genuinely care about you, which they may do to a lesser or greater degree, right? So first thing is, if you've lost your support network, you got to build another one, right? And I know I hear all of this stuff all the time. Stephen, there's no way. I never have a moment. They're around me all the time. They've taken my car. They've taken my money. I don't have a car. I don't have any money. I don't have where to get transportation. I don't have any friends anymore. I'm completely alone. My family won't talk to me, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, then in that case, you're screwed. I'm kidding, right? So then you have to work at creating a support network. You got to be creative. What isn't creative is saying, I can't. There's just no way. That's telling me you don't want to. That what you want is an excuse to justify not leaving, right? And there isn't one, not any, right? So there's always a way, and I have hundreds of examples of people being in that situation that found their way out. And if that's not enough, I've got ones that haven't actually happened to my clients that have happened to other people. So look for those examples. Let those inspire you. But there 100% is a way out. And there's absolutely a way to build a support network, whether you get online, whether at some point they're not there, right? We've got to accept that. They can't be sitting next to you 24/7. They got stuff to do too, right? So you're going to utilize that time to build a support network. Could be someone at the supermarket. You've seen these young women that are in these, are being controlled, or they've been human trafficked, right? And they're walking through a mall and they have the signal that they do from behind them to get help, and people step in and they get the guy away, right? And then they get help and support. That is what you gotta do if necessary. There's a way out. Always. Always. What ways? Always, right? So you got to build a support network. And if there's not one there, you got to find one. And that's just one example of how you can do that, right? And people want to help. They do. It's in our nature. You say, well, I haven't seen that on I-75 in the morning when people are on the way to work. They don't want to help you. They don't want to let you in. They want to, anyway, you know what I mean, right? But people do generally want to help, right? It's in our nature. Yes, you can give me lots of references where people don't, but that's not in their nature. That's because they're out of nature, right? They're not in their nature. It's because they're so stressed and they're so angry because this emotion is being pushed down. We've got to give people some leeway, right? Don't judge unless you've walked a day in their shoes, right? Sometimes people cut me off and I used to chase after them and cut them off. But you could always ask me, how was that working for me? And it wasn't, right? And so eventually I had to think, I don't know what they're going through right now. They've got something going on in life that I don't understand. Just let them go. Don't get in the way. Don't fight that, because that's just what they want, right? So they can justify what they're going to do next, which might be pull out a gun, shoot you, and then drive off. You don't need that. Unless you do. Create a safety plan. Yes, you want to be safe. And then people say, well, what about my kids? Listen, I don't want to be harsh, which is always a good thing to say before you're harsh, right? So look, your kids are extremely durable, right? But they're not going to do what you tell them. They're going to do what you do. You stay in an abusive relationship, I tell you now, they will be in an abusive relationship. Or they'll be the abuser, depending on which side of the equation they want to relate to. Is that what you want for them? Or do you want to show them a strong person that's never going to allow that is going to set boundaries, that's going to say to anybody that treats them badly, they're not going to allow it? And so you're showing them that that's not acceptable. They might be uncomfortable. It might not be easy for them either, but they'll respect you. And they will know my mom would never put up with that, and I'm not going to put up with it either. But to the best of your ability, you're going to have a safety plan, right? And so if, for example, you use the call sign that you're in a toxic relationship, that you're being abused, or that you are being human trafficked, it's all the same, right? And you use that sign, as soon as those people get hold of you, explain that my children are in this house and We need to go get them and make them safe. And they will. All right? To say there is no way is a lie. I'm sorry, it's just a lie. And you know it. There is a way. It begins with making a decision that you're not going to accept this anymore. Decision means to cut off any other possibility. Now, when you do that, magic happens. I'm not kidding. Once you make that decision, it happens at an energetic level. Everything is energy. When you make that decision truthfully, you commit to it, the energy around you moves. And that allows miracles to happen in your life, to people to show up that didn't know. But you've got to take action. You've got to show them, here I am. I need help, and people will help. You just got to keep committed. Tell trusted people the situation you are in. Expect grief, right? Look, you have a bond with them. Not just a trauma bond, but you have an emotional bond based on some of the wonderful things you did together. You're also going to be afraid of being alone. So these highs and lows become chemically reinforcing, which we talked about, the trauma bond, right? That's why leaving often feels like withdrawal, because they're your addiction, right? You know, I often talk about Tamaz was my heroine, right? Because that's how high I got on her, right? So it feels like a withdrawal when you let them go. Now, it all begins when you stop arguing with reality, start facing the truth. Missing someone doesn't automatically mean they're good for you, does it? Sometimes you're simply grieving the dream you attach to them. Leaving begins long before you walk out of the door. It begins in that moment of decision, right? Healing is becoming someone new. Letting go of the person you used to be. And that's, you grieve that person as well, right? But you're becoming more of who you really are. So don't confuse loneliness with a reason to return. Healing isn't about finding someone new. Healing is becoming someone who no longer accepts less than they deserve. I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Your heart is incredibly valuable. And as we go forward, once we get through these stages of transformation, which it is, your heart is going to become more and more important, because moving forward, we need to relearn, remember how to live from our heart. Just like the ancients told us, live from your heart, speak from your heart. If something is true, it will be heartfelt. And this is the next progression, the next stage of the evolution of human consciousness. And that's why I've created the philosophy of heartism and becoming a heartist. As you live from your heart, you will be expressing more of your creative spirit, your artistic nature. So heartist is living from your heart and expressing your artistic nature. And heartism is the practice we use to become a heartist. I know, freaking genius. So don't hand the keys to your heart simply because someone showed interest. Protect your peace fiercely. Give your trust slowly. Protect your peace fiercely. The Venus flytrap catches the fly because the fly mistakes attraction for safety. It isn't. Don't mistake attention for love. And don't mistake chemistry for character. Don't mistake intensity for intimacy. Good words to live by. Change your patterns, not just your partner. So if this episode helped you, subscribe, share it with someone you care about. Visit VFT23.com. Download the free resources, and book your complimentary coaching session with me if you're ready to change your patterns, not just your partner. Until next time, never abandon yourself for someone else's approval, and sapere ord. So that is a phrase. It's Latin. It was used by Horace in some of his poems. It means dare to be wise. It takes courage to be wise, to not follow the throng, right? To stand out, to really what we call think for yourself, right? Kant, the famous German philosopher, used it in his essays when he talked about becoming enlightened. And the way for that is to step out of the norm, to step out of what everybody else say, and be independent. Speak for yourself. Speak your own truth. Dare to be wise. And omnia vincit amor is also Latin, and it means love conquers all. So stay true to that. Dare to be wise. And I use the word dare as an acronym for daily active remembering experience. Each day, do something that dares you to be wise, that causes you to have a daily active remembering experience that gets you out of your comfort zone and closer to being who you really are. So, if you're not in a toxic relationship and don't want to get into one, your dare is to learn and practice the 5 questions you never want to answer. If you are in a toxic relationship, then the next thing is to take the first step in getting out of it, right? And commit to that. That is your daily active remembering experience. So, until we meet again, sapere ord, omnia vincit amor.